Hello and welcome back to my small little library. Today I'm gonna have kind of a short video for you, but something I wanted to talk about, which I really realized I don't know, last week or something like that, and that is book series and why I personally prefer standalones or book series where you can read the books as standalones. And the main reason I came to that conclusion were these two books, which this one is Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, which is the first one in the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. And then this one is The Heroes of Olympus, The Lost Heroes by Rick Riordan, which is the first book in the second series that contains Percy Jackson. But in this one, Percy Jackson isn't in there, he's in the second one. And I read the second one last week. We have Monday today, so just last week. And the amount of frustration I have with the series, because it feels like I'm reading the first series over again, but in triple the size without really much more happening. And I felt like it was really frustrating because I feel like you could have changed it up. You could have made it different, and I get that, you wouldn't read these two series directly after one another. I did that. I read them in a relatively short time, I think over 1 year or something. I read this complete series, the Red Pyramid series by him, I don't know, the King Chronicles, I think is the trilogy called, and then I read the first two in the series now. And I was just so frustrated because it feels like reading the same book over and over again, but with slightly different characters. And I hate it, and I don't want to be mean because they're obviously not bad books. They have their merits, the stories are interesting, but I get so frustrated with the amount of similarities and the amount of sameness I get from the book that I get so frustrated by it. And even though there are series I really, really love, I brought two for comparison here, which the first one is Children of Time. I absolutely love the series. It's one of my favorite sci-fi series. And then we have a second one of my favorite sci-fi series, which is Hyperion, which there are 4 books in this one. This one I think is a trilogy so far. But yeah, I don't know if there will be more, but it's a trilogy so far. And even though those two also have a slight problem with continuation, with the same thing happening, there are enough differences between the books that I feel like it's not nearly as bad as these. And I know I'm comparing the books from one series to 2 series here, but I feel like in both of these series, each and every book feels the same. It's always the concept of we have one main character and he needs to go on an adventure and he needs to pretty much do 3 things and then comes to the adventure to the end, and there is an end fight and they win. That is pretty much what is happening in these 2 series. In every series by Rick Riordan I've read so far, it feels like that is the concept of the story. And because of that, it feels really same-ish. For Children of Time, I feel like they are pretty similar from the concept that is happening in the books. Well, at least the first two. The third one is a little bit different. But you have here, humans going to a new planet, finding a species of an alien species. In the first book, it's spiders, which have mutated because of the humans, and then the second one it's octopi. I don't know what the right plural is of that. But yeah, in the second one it's those and their interaction with humans. So it's pretty similar, but it's different enough because of the animal species being completely different and humanity being at a slightly different point in time. And then the third one kind of combines all of that. So that is the reason I kind of love this series, because it is same-ish, but it is not the same, and it is different enough, and the third one just completely changes everything. And with this one, this is mostly, I feel like, a travel book, kind of. All 4 books are a lot of traveling, going between places, and it also has time travel, so that also changes quite a bit. But this one kind of doesn't have a formulation, other than that from the beginning of the first book to the ending of the 4th book is one continuous journey. And even though they go back to places they have been before and stuff like that, and you get flashbacks to like things that happened in the books before, there's no sameness here. It's always a forward motion. Even though, you know, we have repetition in like what is happening because of the time travel aspect, kind of things keep happening again a little bit. But yeah, I feel like these two are so much more of a forward motion than these two, and I was so frustrated with reading these, and like, I don't want to be mean. I feel like it's mean to like subtract from a rating because of that, because obviously, you know, when these books come out, I feel like in the past, like when I was a teenager, they came out like 1 year apart. A lot of the book series, like for example, I bought the Twilight series when they came out. You know, I was a teenager. I feel like every teenager kind of that was into books bought the Twilight series, and so I bought them one at a time when they came out, 1 year after the other. The same as like for the Harry Potter series and stuff like that. You know, all of those series, I kind of like bought them like 1 year apart, and if you read them 1 year apart, it doesn't really seem like that much of a problem, you know. But like if you go back and read the series one book after the other, I feel like with these ones you get really, really frustrated because everything reads the same. These ones I would have no problem reading them one after the other, which is especially what I did with Hyperion. I read one a month, 4 months, one after the other. So I read these pretty soon, one after another, and I never had the problem with like feeling like I'm running in circles for the series. This one I have a little bit more time between them, but the same thing. And then I think one of the series that does it best, I feel like, and I want to bring this as an example, because I want people, if you are an author and you write series, please keep things like this in mind, that if you write the same book over and over again in the series, it gets boring and it is annoying, and I stop buying the series then. A lot of the books on the shelves is like a first one in a series, and I never bothered to pick the other ones up because I'm like, you know, it works as standalone. I have no interest to read the same book again in just like, you know, same but different kind of a way. And so because of the experiences I've made with the series so far, I tend to not go back and buy a second part, even though there might be a chance that it is a lot more like Area X, which is the but the title for the trilogy is the Southern Reach trilogy. In like this form where there are all 3 books in one, it is called Area X, but the books one after the other are Annihilation, Authority, and Acceptance. And this book, all 3 books are so different, and it is just really one story. It feels a little bit like The Lord of the Rings, where like originally The Lord of the Rings wasn't a trilogy. Originally it was one book, but the publishers went to Tolkien and were like, we cannot publish this is way too long, you have to cut it, pretty much. And so he was, I don't want to cut things out, so I'm making 3 books out of it, and it was published in 3s. But if you read The Lord of the Rings, there isn't an obvious cut between the books. It's one continuous series. And this one reads like that as well. I don't know if this was originally published as a trilogy or as one, but I'm assuming it was published as a trilogy because I did buy the ones first, and it has the title of the Southern Reach trilogy. And I feel like this is, if you like it or not, the book, I feel like it's not everybody loves it. I loved it, but I can understand why people don't love it. But I feel like this one does it best when it comes to series. Like in the second book, I don't want a repeat of the first book. I want to go somewhere else, have different experiences, you know, go outside of the scope that I got in the first book, you know. It's even with the Hunger Games series. I only read the first 2 books in the Hunger Games series. I haven't finished it yet, and I never read it as a teen, so maybe I'm like a little bit more biased here. But the story is good. But even in that one, you read the first one, you know, they go through the Hunger Games, it all makes sense. I felt like it was a perfect standalone novel. But then you read the second one, and in the beginning I was like, oh wait, great, it is different. But then you come to the point where they get back into the games, and I'm like, why do they need to go back into the games in the second part of the series? Why do we have, you know, even though the games like work really differently, but why do we need to go back? Why couldn't we have a different place to have this all play out? And I mean, maybe I'm alone in that opinion. Maybe other people do really enjoy the going back and having the same novel with like slightly different aspects, but I have such a hard time with that and I get so frustrated with that, and I kind of just wanted to rant about it and let my feelings out. But yeah, that is a reason if on my channel you will often see if I don't buy a series all in one, oftentimes I will not continue with the series and just read the first one as kind of a standalone. Even if I'm interested in the second or third book in the series, I will often never go back and buy them because it's just, you know, I could like much rather read another different standalone book and I get a lot more fulfillment out of those because I don't feel like I'm missing out on stuff and I don't feel like I get the same book on repeat again. It's kind of the same problem I have with YA at the moment, that all of the YA books feel like the same, so they feel like the series I hate to read, but they are all standalone, but they still feel like the same book, like wrapped in different clothing. So that is a different problem for a different day. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to let my thoughts out about that. Maybe you can leave me some feedback how you experience stuff like that. And maybe, just maybe, if you have some good series that work more like Area X, that they are just a forward motion and they don't repeat the pattern of the books, please leave them down below because I would love to get more series that I really, really would enjoy how the series works out and not have this annoying repetition of how the book works and how the world works, because I just don't enjoy that. And it's annoying, you know, because I feel like nowadays a lot of books are series. I feel like we have a pretty small amount of standalones, especially when it comes to fantasy. I feel like fantasy tends to be series, much to my annoyance, and sci-fi I also feel like are a lot of series. I feel like the only genre where I personally don't have a problem with the repetition is thrillers and crime novels. For example, the Kathy Rice novels, yeah, they are pretty much a repetition of the same because each book gives you one case, and so you obviously always have the case play out. But I feel like those series are much more suited to just reading the books as standalones. You don't have to read the series, and they work much more like a TV series, and that might be a little bit biased, but you know, in that case, I enjoy that because that is exactly what I want and what I go into if I read a series about one detective or, you know, one investigator. Yeah, like, you know that you get his job as a series. But with these ones, like, I feel like there was so much opportunity to make the books really, really different from one another, and instead we get a repetition of what worked and what maybe the people really loved in the beginning. And he kept writing the same book. And nothing against these books. I still feel like they're good books. I think these got all 4 stars for me. But it is still annoying because I would have loved so much more out of them, you know. But yeah, please leave me some feedback down below. I think this might be a topic where like feedback is really good. Maybe it's just really a problem like in my head and not actually like a problem for other people. But yeah, I would enjoy some feedback. And yeah, thank you for listening to me rant a little bit about my series problem, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!